Bestia.
Six years ago, I was exiled from the social dogma by an evil sorceress named Azraela. I was marooned on an island somewhere in the sea of unfulfilled dreams. Everything I once had was lost. All I had left was a GameCube, a Dreamcast, an Xbox, a TV, a computer with a Wi-Fi connection, and Adobe Creative Cloud license, access to electricity and water, and an old tower to sleep in. So I don't really know what I'm complaining about, to be honest. Anyway, using my elite internet skills, I was able to make a living by investing in Hulk to a coin and selling fanboy cosplay videos on OnlyFans. I'm only able to leave the tower safely at night, but sometimes they still catch me. I continue to rot here creating mind poison videos on the internet as a way to keep myself sane. Maybe I don't need to leave. Maybe it's better here.
Hiya, Manic Bestia here. Since my previous online Obscura episode is all about breakcore, you know, the most spastic internet genre, I thought I'd follow it up with the complete opposite. So tonight I'm talking about my favourite atmospheric music, Dungeon Synth. When you first hear about it, Dungeon Synth may sound like a very weird genre, but it's likely you've actually been listening to it your entire life undiagnosed without even knowing. Dungeon Synth has never had a huge fan base, yet it's everywhere. Perhaps you've heard it in the background of your favourite audiobook, video game, or fantasy film. You may have even come across it because of a TikTok trend from last year, or maybe you've tried listening to black metal and just wished the intro was the whole song. Nevertheless, you've heard it, and tonight I want to discuss what makes it special. Oh, and by the way, I tried my best to avoid pronouncing names in this video. I can barely grasp the English language, let alone all this fantasy European gobbledygook. Trust me, it's for the best. The concept behind Dungeon Synth isn't a new phenomenon by any means. The genre has its roots all the way back to the 1970s, back when synthesizers were first being used as an instrument for soundtracks. Artists like Tangerine Dream and Klaus Schulze were pioneers in the field of synth music at the time. The term Dungeon Synth was only coined recently, however, and even though they sound similar, Dungeon Synth isn't just synthesized soundtrack music. In fact, the genre itself as we know it today is more of an independent art form free from any other type of media. The genre invites you to be immersed in the worlds it creates with suggestions from the cover art, but these are usually all you get outside of the music itself. I think the best way to experience it comes from your own interpretations rather than what has been written, directed, or programmed for you in other art forms. The album covers used in Dungeon Synth vary wildly depending on the art style too. Typical vibes include the use of dark, snowy medieval landscapes, which brings the genre back to its melancholic black metal roots. Either that or shitty MS-DOS drawings that look like the title screen of a text-based adventure game.
Holy shit! Is that the Dark Souls guy?
Since the 2010s, the genre has evolved into more of a nostalgia circle jerk as people seek to reminisce about the times of dungeon crawler video games, cassette tapes, and fantasy RPGs. The 1990s has really been seeing a large revival lately on the internet thanks to all the PS1 style games and jungle music mixers blowing up all over the place. As if Y2K was a real event that actually happened. But to be honest, the 90s aesthetics have never really died. Gorshit released his homage to 90s rave music in 2011, barely 10 years after the century had passed. And as for Dungeon Synth, well, the genre has been going non-stop since the 90s and continues to grow as more people discover it from trendy YouTube mood mixers and retro video games. Oh, speaking of which, can I just say how great the YouTube algorithm is at recommending music? Seriously, Spotify, Apple Music, get the fuck out of here! There are so many niche and incredible independent artists which get pushed on YouTube that I would never have known about otherwise. The YouTube homepage has shown me so many amazing niche albums that never had a physical release. And how did I discover Dungeon Synth? Because Diplodocus was on the YouTube homepage, and the cover art drew me in. As a reason people are always saying, God bless the YouTube algorithm in the comments section. But algorithms aren't always on our side because watch out! Some Dungeon Synth artists have resorted to the twisted sciences of artificial intelligence to create the cover art for their music. Like, honestly, I'd rather you just had no cover art than some regurgitated AI slop ruining the atmosphere. But don't worry, we can't use AI to instantly generate the highly complex language of music itself, right? Just kidding! Anyway, as I'm sure you can guess because you're very clever, Dungeon Synth uses almost exclusively synthesized sounds, which you may claim isn't real music if you're a 99-year-old cunt. I mean, sure, real instruments sound amazing, but we live in the internet age, and at this point I've heard every sound a piano can make. Of course, there is some Dungeon Synth out there that does use real instruments, but come on, it's in the name. You have to use synthesizers, otherwise I guess you're just severely acoustic, sorry. But even then, we don't live in goddamn Wakanda, bro! Synthesizers cost fucking deranged amounts of money, what the hell? So instead of buying the real thing, you can just download the sound font online for free. Don't tell nobody though.
Whoa, hold up. I need context. Who are you? Whoa, okay, oh, would you look at the time? I've really got to go. Okay, see ya. Bye.
Video game music has had a huge influence on the genre, given the fact that all video game music had to be synthesized up until the invention of the compact disc. And even then, recorded song files would still take up a lot of valuable space on the disc. The information to store MIDI note data instead of full MP3 files is thousands of bytes smaller, which is why developers would still use MIDI music for a while when developing games. Using MIDI, a computer would be able to send musical data into a digital player. The instrument sounds stored inside a sound font use extremely short loopable waveform bytes which take up a fraction of space on the disc. The MIDI data would then tell the player, hey, can you play these notes on this instrument at this speed and at this volume? And the sound bank would be like, no. Please!
Okay, damn! Shit!
But what even is a sound font though? You probably already know what a text font is, and it's a similar concept. Each brand of console and computer back in the day would use a different sound font, usually based on a specific synthesizer to give their system a unique sound. For instance, a song on the Nintendo 64 would sound very different to a song on the Sega Saturn because they both use different samples. This is what gives a lot of Dungeon Synth that cheesy, cheap, and incredibly charming sound. Many people have grown a powerful attachment to these simplistic aliasing waveforms, and some people, like me, even go as far as to transpose their favourite music into a different game's sound font to play in ROM hacks, like the DK64 randomizer, leading to some hilarious results. But if you want to hear some really nice sound font music, you can look no further than the original music composed with these limitations in mind. The Donkey Kong Country soundtracks by David Wise famously make use of the sample channels on the Super Nintendo to great effect. The soundtrack for Daggerfall, composed by Eric Heberling, is a personal computer game, so it would actually sound different depending on which sound card you had. The one you're hearing now uses the Roland SC55. Final Fantasy VI again uses the Super Nintendo sound font. Final Fantasy VII, however, uses the PlayStation's sound chip, even though the console is capable of CD quality playback. Nobuo Uematsu decided against it to save on disk space. This game was already on 3 fucking discs, what, you want a 4th one now? Here you go! Final Fantasy IX. What changed with this game is each piece of music used its own individual sound bank, creating a more versatile palette at the cost of slower loading times. Alright, maybe I'm a little bit biased towards the Final Fantasy soundtracks, but you get my point. When you know the actual hardware and how these sound fonts were used properly, you can make them sound uniquely enchanting, like nothing you could ever hear using an orchestra. You could probably describe modern Dungeon Synth as a form of synthesized folk music. The genre has an emphasis on cultural diversity by creating different moods based on emulated instruments from around the world. There are hundreds, if not thousands of subgenres within that portray a variety of atmospheres based on fantasy, legends, and folklore. Old school Dungeon Synth. You're locked in a catacomb with nothing but a torch, and there be skeletons every which way. Will you escape alive? Japanese Synth? Now, you're infiltrating an ancient temple in the middle of a bamboo forest. The entrance is guarded by spirits you dare not disturb. Comfy Synth. A gentle fire crackles by the hearth as you drink a warm mug of cocoa in a goddamn Swedish cottage in the middle of winter.
Excuse me, what the actual fuck are you doing in my house?
Chiptune Synth. Oh my god!
The king desperately needs your help to rescue the Prince of Camelot, whose face only consists of 4 pixels. Take this steed and Godspeed to you.
Dino Synth. That's right, now you're a Hypsilophodon in the Mesozoic era, and it's hunting season. Those cephalopods better watch out. Lego Synth. Plant music? Okay, let's be honest. Most of these are just genres people who re-uploaded the tracks onto YouTube have made up. Just replace the synth suffix with the word core, and hey, now you're inventing new hardcore genres. I swear to God, it's like the internet is perpetually gaslighting itself into making up meme genres and then actually following through on them. We all know the best genres start off as jokes though, so I don't really care.
Dungeons! Chambers! Whoa! Evil creatures! Treasure chests! Doorways! Traps!
My favourite subgenre has got to be Fantasy Synth. In fact, all the music I've made for my channel has been my attempt at creating fantasy Dungeon Synth tracks of my own. I tried to mostly use sounds from the Nils K1V synthesizer, and since the beginning I've always used Dungeon Synth as the background music for my videos, whether it's from a video game soundtrack or an independent artist. Dungeon Synth feels like it's been the secret soundtrack to my life, from listening to audiobook cassettes as a kid to having secret stairways in my headphones while I write this script. Some of the best artists in the genre are able to perfectly mix the energy of baroque and folk music with the divine melodic pads and field recordings of ambient music. Look, I know I sound like a fucking stoner with a dent in their head when I say this, but Dungeon Synth has some of the most immersive, surreal, and heart-wrenching music I've ever heard. With a single melody, it has the power to instantly transport me into a different fucking realm entirely. No thank you, I don't need your drugs. I'm high on that castle siege right now.
Chester, what the hell are you doing here?
Oh, it's you again! I'm looking for someone with a functioning brain. Have you seen one around here?
Someone with a functioning brain.
Actually, don't worry about it. You wouldn't understand.
Shit, he's coming. Chester, get the hell out of here.
That was easy.
Man, he's dead. Because the genre has its roots in black metal, it usually has a strong sense of misery encased within it. The major majority of classical elitist chamber music I hear on the radio uses a lot of major scales, and it all feels quite soulless. On the other hand, independent artists like Umbria, Tales Under the Oak, and dozens more newcomers working within Dungeon Synth circles try to harness much deeper emotions that feel more personal and sincere as a result, using tape warping, vinyl crackle, and distortion effects to create richly nostalgic textures. When hearing these old synthesized fantasy tapes on my cheap tinny stereo, it makes me think of an old wise sage telling me fairy tales of distant kingdoms and mythical creatures. It's the perfect mood music for when you're reading a dark fantasy book or writing a story. But that doesn't mean all Dungeon Synth has to be miserable goth garbage, because that can also get really stale after a while. In its modern form, the genre has become more of an umbrella term for people's personal soundtrack projects. My favourite albums are those which explore a range of emotions and tones anyway, allowing me to imagine a variety of different scenarios instead of just a guy with black and white makeup standing on top of a snowy mountain at night. Also, it's Norway. Oh my god, that was a fucking ordeal. Okay, let's actually see what's in this dumbass box now. It better be worth it. Oh, bruh. For fuck's sake. Seriously? Chester died for a couple of tapes? He knows this format sucks dick, right? Whatever, let's give this a spin, why not? Dungeon Synth is the genre that takes you on a journey. A book without words, a song without lyrics, and a film without frames. A step into a fantasy world of your own imagination, woven by mysterious strangers from places you've never known. So yeah, that's Dungeon Synth.
Nobody cares! Oh my god.
And there are communities that are getting into cassettes too. Like this is pretty weird. But like Dungeon Synth is a genre of music that I like.
What's Dungeon Synth? What is Dungeon? That's serial killer.
I don't know what it is, but I feel like I can hear it in my mind.